Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hello everybody and welcome. It's yours truly, Stewart Andrew Alexander, back again with another exciting guest. And I'm really excited about who we've brought on to the show today. Now, my guest has dedicated her career to the non-profit sector as a trainer, manager, dean, and executive. She loves to work with people just starting out or transitioning to the non-profit sector. She also combines a broad background in non-profit and association management, as well as higher education administration, distance learning, training, volunteer leadership, and board development. Now, with over 30 years of experience generating revenue in non-profits, professional development, training, strategy, and governance, she works with those in their early, mid, or late careers. So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, are you somebody who has lost a job, wants to change jobs, industries, careers, or even cities? Well, you might want to just buckle up, settle down, and listen in to my guest today, who helps people just like you, as well as people in non-profits or academic administration, or those wanting to get into the non-profit arena. So with that said, let's not keep her waiting any longer and welcome her to the show, career coach and founder of GeffenCareers, Amy Geffen. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Stewart.
You're so welcome. So, Amy, let's just jump straight in. Who is it that you help? Who's that perfect prospect that you're helping out there, Amy?
So I'm helping people in nonprofits, such as associations, universities, charitable organizations, or people working in academia as administrators, deans, coordinators, and people who are getting into the nonprofit area. There are lots of folks who work in the for-profit arena and want to switch into nonprofit to work for a company whose mission they really believe in. I could help people who have lost their job or who are just unhappy now and really want to change their job or change their industry.
Okay, fantastic. So now that we know who that you'll help and who you have this greatest passion around helping, can you just think about some of the most common obstacles that prevent these people from either changing jobs, industries, careers, or cities while you're out there working with them?
Good question. One of the obstacles is that it really takes time to assess your skills and interests and think about all your accomplishments from your past work, your volunteer work, your school work, your work. And people just don't have the time or the willingness to spend the time to assess their skills and figure out what it is they want to do. That's one obstacle. Another obstacle is people tend to answer job ads online. That's very easy. Doesn't take all that much time. They can sit at their computers and relax in their pajamas, and they think that's all it takes to get another job instead of doing the work it takes to contact people, get informational meetings, follow up with people. And the third obstacle, I think, is people think all they need is a resume. And if I have a great resume, I'm going to send that resume, and the hiring manager is going to want to call me in for an interview. And really, it's not just about the resume. That's only one step in a longer process.
Just keeping those three obstacles in mind, can you just share with us a case study, so to speak, somebody or one or two people who you've actually helped to overcome those obstacles so that they were able to change jobs, industries, careers, or cities?
Okay, so let me think back over my career with these folks and see if I can pick a few people who are appropriate.
And sorry to just jump in, Amy, I forgot to mention, obviously keep client confidentiality in mind. We don't obviously have to name any names. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I won't mention any names. So here's a person who had worked in a religious organization and wanted to switch from that into management, organization, general nonprofit management, or go into hospitality. And so we really had to spend some time thinking about what were his best skills, what were his accomplishments, how could he transfer those skills in things like organizing, planning, budgeting, to make him appropriate and make him saleable into a not-for-profit organization. And so we worked on his accomplishments, we worked on a resume, on a cover letter, on interview skills, and he applied to several places that would be appropriate for him. And he did switch ultimately into administration at a religious organization as opposed to what he was doing before. That's one example. Now, another example, a gentleman who had worked at one job for one company since college. He had been there for many, many years. Never had to write a resume, never had to go on an interview. And he found himself without a job after 29 years. So we had to sit down and think about, okay, what have you been doing over those years? What are your accomplishments? What are your best skills? How do you want to put your best foot forward? And we worked through that process. Again, I helped him to write the cover letter, the resume, practice interview skills. Ultimately, he got a job at less money than what he was earning, only because he really needed the income, and he continued to look for a higher level job. Sometimes you do have to take a step backwards to take some steps forwards.
Could you just please share with us 2 to 3 popular misconceptions that the people who you work with may have about changing jobs or industries or their careers or even moving to another city, if you will?
So here's one misconception, and I alluded to this earlier. People think that the best way to get a job is to look online. Indeed.com, Idealist.com, Monster.com, search firms are online. There are dozens of different websites that list job openings. The truth is that only 10 to 14% of job seekers actually get a job from answering online ads. For every advertisement that's online, about 1,000 people click through, about 200 people start their application, 100 people actually complete the application. Of those 100 people, the human resources manager knocks out 75 people. Maybe 25 resumes will be reviewed. And of those 25 resumes, 4 to 6 and sometimes 10 people will actually be interviewed, and ultimately one person will be offered the position. The fact is, the best way to get a job, 2 best ways, 40% of people get jobs through networking, and 40% of people get jobs through direct contact with a hiring manager at an organization, not necessarily in response to a job ad. So another misconception is when you work with a search firm, let's say you're in IT or you're an executive. So there are search firms that spend their time just on filling positions for their clients. The search firm does not work for you, the job seeker. The search firm works for their client. So you may have great credentials, great education, and you feel you're perfect for the job, and the search firm calls you in. First, they'll call you up on the phone, and you'll speak to them for half an hour. Then they'll call you in for a live interview. Then, if they like you, they'll move you ahead, and you'll be interviewed by their client. That doesn't mean they're rooting for you. The client is making the ultimate decision. And I have had clients who have gone on these interviews with search firms and thought they did a great job, and someone else gets the job because there was something else that they really were looking for. And so that gets us to the third misconception, which is everything that they want is really in that job description. And that couldn't be further from reality. Because what happens is a job description is actually the ideal candidate for this position. And as we know, there is no such thing as the ideal candidate. No one has everything that this company is looking for. But the people who write the job description in human resources write this full-blown job description asking for all sorts of skills and all sorts of background and experiences. And then when it comes down to it, if you get to the point of interviewing, you really find out, well, gee, they really need someone who has an accounting background, or they really need someone who has fundraising background.
So why do they do that then, Amy?
Well, it's all about the searching, as I said, for the perfect candidate, or the purple squirrel. A lot of HR people call it the purple squirrel. It's something that doesn't exist. So they feel, well, if they put all the stuff into a job description, that they'll definitely get some people who fulfill some of those requirements.
Right.
And it's really up to the candidate to tease out during the interview process which of those requirements are really the most important ones. And do I, as a candidate, meet those requirements?
Right, that's a very interesting point because I know someone who's very close to me right now. I was just looking at an application, and she ticks every single box on the job description except for one, which requires a certain amount of years of experience. And she's in two minds whether to even apply because she doesn't tick that box. So that's very, very useful information, not just for myself, but I'm sure for the listeners as well. Before we move on, Amy, you brought up a really interesting point where you said 40% of job seekers get jobs through networking. Now, that's something I personally have never, ever heard about or even thought about myself. So can we just expand on that? Because when I think about some of the people I know and what I consider to be networking, meaning seeing people face to face, belly to belly, toe to toe, shaking hands, a lot of people out there are introverts and wouldn't feel real comfortable with that. So could you just expand on that and give some kind of insight to people like that and what you mean by networking? What does that actually mean?
Good question. We all have our own networks. We have our friends, our family, our colleagues from work or previous jobs, people that we know through our hobbies or our interests or the gym that we belong to. When I talk about networking, I'm talking about expanding the people that you know so that they can help you in your job search. So the first thing is, if you're in a profession, any profession, you need to join your professional association. So, for example, we all know attorneys have associations, CPA accountants have associations, but frankly, almost any profession, whether it's a blue collar, white collar, trade, IT, they all have associations which are not-for-profit organizations that provide resources, information, and networking opportunities for their members. So by joining a professional association, you get an opportunity to meet and talk with people who do what you do, who know what's happening in their industry. And particularly if you're going to move to another city, if you join the association and then you find out about their chapter in that city, then you get to meet with people in that chapter. If you're moving to another city and you don't have a network, you need to join something that is related to your profession. That's one way to expand your network. A second way to expand your network, an alumni association. If you've graduated from a college, a university, a training program, a certification program run by an institute or an organization, they have an alumni group. You need to join the alumni group and get involved. It's not just enough to join. Yes, as a member, you will have access probably to an online directory and you can look people up. It is helpful to get active, join a committee so that you really get to know people and develop a relationship with people. A third way to expand your network is through volunteering. Let's say you are out of work and you have time on your hands and you're interested in certain things. It helps to volunteer so that you meet people who may not necessarily be in your chosen field. However, you get to know them by volunteering for this other organization. Let's say you're going to a soup kitchen and you go there once a month and you get to meet the other people who are the volunteers. They have their own networks. So networking is not only about meeting people who are in your field, it's also about meeting other people who share your passion for something. You get to know them, and then you can have access to their networks. And then the fourth way to network, and that leads to the direct contact, is using LinkedIn. Those of us who are on LinkedIn have our own contacts, our first-level contacts, but then there are second- and third-level contacts. So the object is to ask your first-level contacts to introduce you to their first-level contacts so that you expand your network that way. Now, Stewart, you also talked about people who are a little introverted or a little shy. Well, when you go to one of these meetings or you go to a social event, you can go with a friend or go with a colleague so that you feel, okay, you've got someone kind of at your back so that you're not alone. The other thing is people attend an event, they're all there for a reason. And so they're there expecting to meet other people. And it does take a little bit of effort to go, to walk up to people, to start conversations. But people love to talk about themselves. So the best question is to say, hi, I'm Amy, what's your name? What do you do? And then you get people off and running talking about what they love to do. And so I think with practice, people can do it more easily.
So, Amy, we're talking to people who have lost jobs, people who are looking to change jobs, their industries or their careers maybe, or even move to another city. So when you think about those people, Amy, what are one or two pitfalls that they may not be aware of should they go out there and get these jobs, change industries, careers, or cities by themselves? Could you just share one or two pitfalls for us, please?
One of them is what to put on your resume and what not to put on your resume. If you're changing cities, or even if you're not changing cities, you should not be putting your home address on your resume. If you're living in one city and you're moving to another city, they don't know that. All they see is your email address and your phone number. Your phone number might give it away, but if you have a cell phone, that's even better. A landline has an area code, and people can figure out where you live from the area code. So you don't want to put that on your resume because you don't want people to be turned off. Well, this person doesn't even live in this city. Why would I even talk to them? Another thing not to put on a resume, irrelevant information. People seem to think that a resume is their whole autobiography, and they have to put every little detail about every job they've had, every year they've had it. And that's just not so. You really only need to put in the last 10 years of work experience, except in certain cases, academic jobs, you may want to put in everything. But most jobs, you don't have to put everything in. So that's the second thing not to put on your resume. And then another piece that some people used to do, and I think less so now, put on interests. Well, you may be interested in hiking or bicycling or playing pinochle or playing bridge, but the person who reads your resume may have absolutely no interest in that. So it really doesn't do you any good to put on things like your hobbies or your interests because it's just a waste of space, and it may not be seen in a positive light. Another pitfall, separate from the resume, bringing up the salary issue. People think, oh, well, I need to find out. Well, if they didn't put the salary in the job description, I really need to find out what the salary is. So often people will bring that up. On the other hand, the HR department or the interviewer may bring up the salary and may ask the question, so what were you making on your last job? And people fall into the trap by answering the question. It is not a good idea to bring up the salary issue unless and until you get a job offer. So how do you postpone that? How do you put off that question? All right. You put off the question in a number of ways. One, you can say, well, I'm really interested in this job and what the full responsibilities are, and salary won't be an issue, so that you try to postpone the question. Another way of handling the salary issue, if the question is asked long before you ever get an offer, is to say this. Well, I have done my research, and I know what the salaries are for this particular job in this particular city. And the range is, and you always give a range, a broad range. Let's say the range is $75,000 to $125,000 or $100,000 to $150,000. Why? Because when you give a number, then you lock yourself into that number. And either the number is too high, and they have no intention of paying that number, or the number is too low, and they think you might not be qualified enough because you've said a lower number. So you try to avoid the salary issue and bring it up later. And then a third way of handling it, depending on how it's brought up, is the job I had before was very different. It had different responsibilities, a different span of management, and I think it's not really relevant. Again, the object is to avoid talking about salary at the beginning.
So far, we've spoken about some of the obstacles and misconceptions, and you've just addressed some really useful pitfalls that people need to be aware of while they're out there looking for a new job. So can we just move forward now and talk a little bit about some of the most common fears that prevent people from even attempting to apply for a new job or change their industry careers or move to a different city? Can you just share some of those fears that you've been coming across in your many years of working in this industry, Amy?
Certainly. So one of the fears is, I'm not good enough. I don't have the right credentials, like the young woman you mentioned. Oh, I've got everything, but I haven't been working as long as they want. Oh, they want 10 years experience. I only have 5 years experience. Or they want 5 years experience. I only have 2 years experience. This can be expanded to, I don't have the exact right skills. I can't meet all their qualifications. The thing to think about is this. because they're looking for an ideal candidate, if you can say to yourself, gee, I meet 70 to 80% of those qualifications, it's important to go for the job. People need to understand that you don't need 100% of what they're looking for to go for the job. So you just got to go for it. The other thing is, it's a numbers game. You can't expect to apply or even send letters to companies where you want to work in a direct manner and get a job if you're only sending out 1 or 2 letters a week to try to get meetings. It's a numbers game. And you need at least a list of 200 positions if you want to get a job. Now, it doesn't mean 200 actual openings. It means that, let's say you wanted to be a bank teller and there's, 20 banks and each bank has 10 positions. Okay, so you could apply to 20 banks because they've got lots of positions. If you wanted to be an executive, well, most companies only have a few executives, so you'd have to write to many more companies to reach that 200 number. The object is to write to as many places that you're interested in as possible and follow up with phone calls to get the meetings. The object is to outlast the competition. Get in for the meeting, get the first interview, then get the second interview, then get the third interview, and keep following up in order to get the ultimate offer.
Amy, can I just ask you something personal beyond what we've been speaking about today?
Go ahead.
Is this really fun for you, what you do? Do you really enjoy what you do on a daily basis?
I love it. And the reason I love it is I've been there, I've been through it, I've changed jobs, I've changed careers, and I'm thrilled when I help people. It energizes me, knowing that I am helping people change their lives for the better, finding what it is they really like to do, making them feel happy, successful, productive. It's great. I mean, I can't think of anything better that I would like to be spending my time on than helping people find what's right for them.
Well, your passion certainly comes through while you've been speaking with me today, and it's obvious to me that you're an educator and an advocate for the success of the people who you help the most. So it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. We've still got a while to go. So the next question that I have for you, Amy, and it sounds obvious every time I ask this question, but why would the people who you work with, those people who have lost their jobs, those people who want to change jobs, their industries, their careers, or even move to a different location, why would they even want to do that in the first place?
Well, usually people want job satisfaction. The second reason is salary, but salary is not the first reason that people change jobs. They want some type of satisfaction. They want to feel that their talents, their skills are being used, that they're feeling productive. Yes, they may want a higher salary. Yes, they may want a more inviting work environment where their colleagues at work are more friendly or on the same wavelength. Maybe they want more benefits. Maybe they want to move to another place where they can live a better lifestyle because the cost of living is lower. So there's lots of reasons why people want to change. If they're no longer learning on the job, if the job is really getting boring and they could do it with one hand behind their back and it's no longer a challenge. Some people don't care about that, but many people want the challenge. They want to continue learning, and so getting a new job could be better.
Exactly. So Amy, let's talk a little bit about yourself, because you've been sharing some great information for the listeners out there, and I'm sure at this point they must be thinking, who is Amy Geffen? She shared all this great content. Let's get to know a little bit more about her herself. So if you could then, Amy, just briefly, in your own words, share a little bit about your own backstory, how you got started, what inspired you to start. Was it a book, a movie, a certain person, or maybe even an event in your life that led to what you are doing today, and share how that all links with how you help the people who you're helping today. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, as you said earlier, I have dedicated my career to the nonprofit sector. I started out as a teacher of English as a second language in the public school system. I worked at night for my PhD in French literature. I wanted to be a French professor, and then there were no more jobs. When I got my degree and I wasn't moving, I met my husband and we got married, so I was staying in New York, and so I was not leaving New York and couldn't find a job. So I said, well, what can I do with my skills? I don't want to teach anymore. I've been teaching for a while. What else can I do? And I applied for a job as a college administrator running a program at a college in Brooklyn, private college. Then I went on to another college. Then I went on to a third college, Westchester Community College, where I started online learning, the very beginning of online learning. And then after that, I worked at an risk and insurance management society. The same person who had hired me at one of the colleges many years later hired me again at an association, continuing to work in the educational field, developing programs. And then I worked at another association. That's why I'm very interested in people joining associations. This one for mechanical engineers, and I worked on their continuing education, developing online learning for the mechanical engineers. And then from there, I became an executive director of a small organization of security analysts. And then I was an executive director at a financial women's association. So during that period of time, there was a period of time when I was out of work, and I got an outplacement with a company that helped me with my job search. And I went there every week to get information, to network, to listen to the coaches talk about the whole process, and I also got hours of private coaching as well. And then I decided, wow, this is something I really enjoy. I really like to do this, and with my background, I would be really good with people who are in nonprofits. And so I took a training program provided by that outplacement organization, and I became a certified coach. So I'm a certified coach with the 5 O'Clock Club. They are a large outplacement organization, and so I got certified, and I said, this is really something that I want to spend my time on. No particular book or movie inspired me. It was my own career in terms of seeing how difficult it is at times to make transitions, to make change, to keep up with all the work and the follow-up it takes to get to the next job. What I say to my clients often is, a job search is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you have to really take care of yourself and be ready for the long haul, because looking for a new job and getting the new job may not take several weeks. It may take several months or more. So what do I offer people for them to get to the next job, whether it's a higher level job or it's a same level job or it's a step back because they really don't want the stress that's involved? It's a 5-step coaching method that starts with reignite, retool, reach, relate, and reinforce. And I'll tell you what each of those things mean. Reignite deals with your self-assessment. A client is asked to go through what are their best skills, what are their best accomplishments, looking over their whole lifetime, whether when they're students, as workers, as volunteers, as parents. What have they done? What are their accomplishments? What are their 7 best stories? Retooling. Then once we know what are their best accomplishments, we look at writing the cover letter, writing a pitch, writing a resume, writing a LinkedIn page. That's the retooling part, getting yourself together with all these pieces of branding material. The third part is reaching out. How do you get meetings? How do you expand your network to get the meetings in the companies where you'd like to work, even if there is no job at the moment? You want to talk to people 2 levels above you so that they find out about you and you find out about their company and what the challenges are for that company at this moment. Then relate, which is the interview process. You actually get interviews, talk about yourself, what you can do for the company, how you can solve their problems, meet their challenges. And reinforce. Reinforce is the follow-up. It doesn't end with the interview or with the resume. That's just the start, because after the first interview, there'll be a second and a third interview, and it's extremely important to follow up with each person who you talk to with a letter that explains, reinforces, repeats what you have said during the interview. Don't expect people to remember anything. You've got to remind them. And it's an opportunity when you follow up also to add things maybe you forgot during the interview. Maybe you had a lapse, and they asked you a question and you really didn't think you did a good job answering the question. In your follow-up, you can expand on that. So this 5-step method, reignite, retool, reach, relate, and reinforce, has been working for many, many years, and that's the method I use with my clients.
And what's the name of that method then, Amy?
It's called the 5-step method from the 5 O'Clock Club.
If there's somebody out there who wants to find out more about that 5-step method from the 5 o'clock club and who wants to find out how you could possibly help them, if that's the case, then Amy, how would they be able to connect with you? What are your contact details?
So you can contact me by email at geffena108@gmail.com, or you can visit my website, www.GeffenCareers, that's G-E, 2 F's as in Frank, E-N, careers.com. And on the website, you'll also see many, many blogs that I've written that have all sorts of great information, some of which we've talked about today, and there's a lot of other information as well. So please feel free to contact me by email or on my website.
Is there something additional that you'd like to share before we leave?
Well, I think the important thing to know is that it's okay not to be able to do the whole job search by yourself. It's a long haul. You need emotional support. You need to be motivated. You need to be accountable. And it's very helpful to have a coach to help you do just that, a coach or a buddy. And that really works for people. It's hard to do it alone. You really need some help.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's another show with yours truly, Stewart Andrew Alexander, and my guest today, Amy Geffen. She's a certified career coach and founder of GeffenCareers. I will ensure that her contact details are on the website. So with that said, take care, and we'll be talking real soon. So until then, bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.